second of the top 10 reasons. This would be to reduce the national debt. Now, for some, it might be, well, how would you go about, reducing the national debt by introducing or embracing the use of gold or silver coin? Well, first of all, it's important to recognize that our current monetary system is debt-based. So every time a dollar is issued, there's a corresponding debt either by the government, the U.S. government, or by some borrower through the banking system that's backing, it's that promise to repay or that debt that's backing our current monetary system. But there's another very interesting statute that I'd like to bring your attention to. I have a friend in California who, when in the mid-1980s, 1985 to be exact, when the U.S. government recommenced the minting of gold and silver coin as legal tender, he determined that he was going to essentially put himself on his own personal gold standard and use nothing but gold and silver coin from that time forward for all of his transactions, including paying taxes. Kind of through that journey, he found himself in Washington, D.C. in a dispute with the IRS over how he was handling one aspect of his tax filings, which ultimately was resolved in his favor. But he had occasion during that time period to actually have a sit-down with Donald Regan, who is the who at the time was the Secretary of the Treasury for Ronald Reagan. And he asked him point blank, why did you pass the law? Why did you reinstitute the minting of gold and silver coin? And Donald pointed him to this statute, 31 U.S.C. 5116. And he said the purpose was to reduce the national debt. And so this is conceptually how the framework operates. Quote, amounts received from the sale of gold, that would be a sale of gold by the U.S. government, shall be deposited by the Secretary in the general fund of the Treasury and shall be used, pay attention here, for the sole purpose of reducing the national debt. So by law, the sale of gold by the federal government is supposed to result in a reduction of the outstanding national debt. Essentially, paper dollars would be retired from the system as gold is issued. Now, whether or not our current Secretary of the Treasury is actually adhering to this, I think is an open question. But nevertheless, it's part of our monetary legal framework, and I think it's important to understand that in many respects, our current monetary system as it is on paper, perhaps not as currently implemented, but as it is passed into law, is a sound and good system. And I think that as the citizenry insists by their use of gold and silver coin as a viable currency on adherence to these principles that are actually embedded in our current statutory framework, that we will actually see these things realized. And this is a theme that I'm going to be coming back to at several points during the presentation today, is that you can have a great legal framework. For example, the Utah Specie Legal Tender Act that Jed referred to during his introductory remarks was actually based on or patterned after a law that was passed in 1893 in Colorado, recognizing gold and silver coin as legal tender. And yet today, you don't see Coloradans using gold and silver coin to pay their groceries or what have you. And I think that the issue there is that although you may have a good legal framework, if you don't follow it up with a commercial structure that supports the use of gold and silver coin as money, then the vision of the legislature is not going to be realized. And so that's why it's really important to have both the legal and the commercial framework when looking at this issue.